Yeah,
Christ.
I think the point here about morality and God has already been made by Mark when he pointed out pretty cleanly that if morality is fundamentally rooted in God's stances, his beliefs, his desires, his aims, his goals, then morality would be dependent on God's stances. And a stance-dependent morality is literally what like a subjective morality is. So the only other option is that moral truths hold independent of stances. But that's going to include God's stances. And so then there are things that hold true independently of what God thinks, which is not something that a lot of Christians or Muslims are going to want to grant. So it's either you grant that there are moral truths which hold true independently of God, or these truths are dependent on God's stances,
But can
in
you
which case
re-explain
you're
why
dealing with a
why
subjectivist morality.
Can you re-explain why would they have to be independent of God? Like, so when God throughout
Because
all
that's
religion,
what moral realism is. Stance independent moral truths. And that means independent of God's stances.
no, it's independent of human beings. Not, it doesn't have to be independent.
Well, but then it's not truly a realist morality, because there's a set of stances that it depends on.
What do you mean by can you define what you mean by realist?
I define moral realism the way that all philosophers do. Stance independent moral truths. The view that there are stance independent moral truths.
Basically,
moral
it just
truths
means
hold
objective,
true
the same.
independent of
Okay. So when
moral, hang on, just 1 second. Moral realism just means objective morals, like ones that don't rely on any stance from a person. And moral anti-realists say, hey, they're not things that are outside of stances, like people's positions on things. That's just all that it means: moral subjectivity and moral objectivity.
Okay. So when you say, for example, like all religions that have professed to believe into the one God, right, believed, for example, that like human sacrifice is wrong, except for pagan religions, right? So if that never changed, that how is that a problem, I guess? And how would that be? Why does that have to be independent of God?
I don't think I understand what it is you're asking me here.
Okay, so you're saying if there's a moral truth, you're asserting, or for some reason saying that if there's an objective moral, the moral would have to be independent of God, but God is the one who's objective and outside of us giving the moral command. So, and what I'm saying is like paganism, for example, did allow sacrifice of human beings, but that's a deviance. No like monotheistic preacher or wisdom person, whatever. I'm so fried. Fried my brain.
Sage. I get what you mean. Sure.
Yes, sage, whatever you want to say. Okay. None of them have ever said that was okay. So God's stance isn't changing. That's an objective truth that was held by God throughout time, and He's always preached that through His preachers. Does that make sense?
You're sort of. I think I'm following. So if we're saying that it is immoral, that one ought not sacrifice other humans, and that's never changed, that doesn't remove the fact that the truth of that is only in virtue of God's stance on human sacrifice. Or I could ask you, is the truth, the objective truth of this, if it's objective, that truth that you ought not sacrifice other humans would then hold true independent of God's stance? Then it's objective. But if it's dependent on God's stance, which is what it sounds like, God is the one saying this because of his stances on human sacrifice, then it's dependent on a stance. It doesn't matter that it's God's stance. It's the stance of a person nonetheless, and thus you're dealing with subjectivist morality.
But God isn't a person.
And no, agent is really what.
Did you just say God's not a person? Oh, so God doesn't have
not like a person like us. Excuse me. Like I'm sorry.
What kind of person do you mean? I don't know of any other person like us.
Yeah, if you mean like agent, sure, whatever. I understand what you're saying.
Well, I just take a person to be something that possesses personhood. Does God not possess personhood?
Well, I think we're getting bogged down in Hussein sort of, he interpreted as human kind of thing.
Yeah, I didn't want to prescribe.
Oh, if you
like,
hear me use the word person, I mean person as in something that
I
possesses
understand you're talking about
personhood.
like the
Yeah.
philosophical
So
way.
I consider cats persons and dogs to be persons
Huh.
Okay.
because they possess
So
personhood.
I think that also, if it is independent from God's stance, then the question must be asked is, where is it coming from if it's independent to the mind of God? Because the mind of God is apparently all of God. That is sort of what dictates everything. So you can sort of, at that point, it gets into some weird territory. Like, if our reality is dependent on God's stances, is our reality objective at that point, or stance independent?
I think I just read this before the debate where they're talking about it, where they said like not everything is reality isn't what it seems, and that there's things that we don't see that could be real. And I forgot what it was talking about. It was like something about like physics and stuff, and then
Higher
like
dimensions or something?
yeah, basically there's things outside our reality, so what we perceive we take as like
What?
pragmatic reality, but it's not actually the full truth.
I think there might be things outside our perceived reality, but I wouldn't say there's things outside of, the actual reality, because then they wouldn't be
I don't know what
real.
that means. But what does it even mean?
The
To
higher
be
dimensions
outside
are,
of space-time.
the higher dimensions are also hypothetical. They're not actual yet. We don't have
Okay.
any evidence.
Well,
That is
for
true.
Kate Leo, they can say outside our local presentation of space-time.
Yeah, but that's not what I'm referring to. I'm talking about outside of the whole of physical reality. I don't know what that
Okay, wait,
means.
can you
That's like
explain-
saying
can you-
north of
No,
the
I
North
don't know what it
Pole.
means either. Yeah.
Okay, I
or-
apologize. Let
yeah.
me just go back to your morality question. So, can you explain? So, you're saying that when we say God delivers a prophet and the prophet gives a moral stance through God, you're saying basically that that's dependent on God giving that moral command to human beings, and you're saying that's not objective because it depends on God.
What I'm
that
saying
Well,
is that
Am I
any
summarizing what you're
truth-
saying?
No. I'm saying that any truth, moral truth declared by God in Islam or Christianity, if one happens to be a Christian, the truth of that moral statement is dependent on God's stance concerning whatever the statement is about. So if the statement is murder is wrong and it's objectively wrong, well, the truth of the statement that murder is wrong is dependent on God's particular stances on murder. Now, if you want to say no, it's not. It's a stance independent truth. Then it's true independent of even God's stances, and that just seems contrary to how God is described in parts of Christianity, particularly in Islam, because I think Islam really holds to the idea of aseity, but maybe I'm misremembering. And that seems to violate this idea of aseity if there are truths which hold independent of God's stances.
Okay, so if I say it is dependent on God, what's the
Then
issue?
you're dealing with a subjectivist morality.
Why
And
is it
I
subjective?
personally don't see that as an issue, but everybody else does.
But why would that be subjective?
It's subjective because it's dependent on a stance, and that's what subjective morality means. Stance dependent moral truths.
Okay, so when you say that everything is subjective then.
Well, I think all moral truths are stance dependent. Yes. I'm a moral anti-realist.
Okay, wait. What is that but isn't that just sophistry? Like you're
No.
basically saying like because you had to make a choice on like murder being right or wrong, it's subjective because there's a stance.
No.
So when you ever ask anything,
I'm talking about the truth.
anything, it's subjective.
Hold it. Let's just let Hussein finish. The truth of moral claims, right? Sorry.
No, I'm just not understanding. I guess like the point here. So you're saying that, and maybe I need to go unpack that or learn more about that. Is there
I
like
can tell you what the point is?
Is there a category of this? Like,
yeah.
why are you saying because? So you're saying there's an option and then the
Well,
option makes things
saying,
subjective.
if
This
you
is why I
want to
tried to
read up on
clarify
this,
earlier.
read up on something called the Euthyphro dilemma. Right, it's very old, from ancient Greek days, and it is very, very, very. It's a definite logical problem with morals or these morals being derived from the whole point is, does God decide what is right and wrong, or does he just
Well, I'm not
pass
running a
along what is
Euthyphro.
right and wrong? Well, it's kind of similar.
It's similar, but it's not the same. What I'm referring to is the notion of the truth of moral claims. There's two positions broadly in metaethics on the truth of moral claims. They're true independent of what we think about them, independent of our stances. That's what we mean when we say something is objectively true, that the truth is independent of the stances that agents have on it. Or it's stance dependent. It's subjectively true. Its truth depends on the subject and how it interprets this, whatever is being considered. So if morals come from God, I just take that to mean that morality is dependent, the truth of moral claims is dependent on God's stances about those claims. In which case, you are just then dealing with the subjectivist morality. That's what it means for morality to be subjective. Or you're dealing with an objective morality, but that would entail those moral truths holding true independent of the agent, or rather of the stances of agents. And that just entails God. God doesn't somehow get off the hook because he's God. And then at that point, you're dealing with truths which hold independent of God. And that seems to off-put a lot of Christians and Muslims. Maybe some are willing to accept that, but it doesn't seem like most are. And that's the problem I'm getting at. If morals, quote unquote, come from God, then they're just going to definitionally be subjective.
And the problem is that we can't talk to God, so we can't get a clarification. We can't get this thing sorted out. So it becomes a problem, because what if things have changed? And we have examples in all of the holy texts of God changing his mind about stuff. So how can we do a proper measure of what is true, what is moral, what's immoral?
So I think it's a really difficult question. We're talking about God. We're not talking about a person who, like, does God really change God's mind? I think this is an important question that we have to consider. Or is this all a part of God's plan and we're just limited humans and we don't understand the master plan that's going on? And I think that's just something that let's steelman the idea. If God is real, what does that mean? What does that framework look like?
Yeah, and the Quran does mention, to what Issa's saying, it says like that God, for example, before Adam was put on the world, he provided him knowledge, and then he slowly prepared him for the world, and he's preparing basically humanity through generations. So it's like a refinement of the human spirit.
1 second. How did he prepare Adam when he wasn't even a thing? Like, he made him from the dirt, didn't he?
No. Like what I'm saying, he prepared Adam to go to Earth. Like so the angels, when they say, like, I know what you conceal, God teaches Adam the names of things, basically teaching him knowledge. And so he's showing to the angels that human beings are different from angels. They have this capacity, they have choice, they have will, they have knowledge, they can learn. And then he's basically, and then he allows the Adam to roam through paradise, essentially. And then they have the thing with like Adam and Eve and like the Satan. And he's basically saying, like, you'll now go into heaven, or to the earth, where the earth is a test, and let it be known, basically, that Satan is your enemy. Like in Islamic concept is like the retreating whisperer. So
did he teach him morality?
Huh?
Did he teach him morality?
Yeah, just if I may add something, because Brother Hussain's and the others, I just want to make sure we realize something here. we do, in our conception of God, God is all knowing. There's really no knowledge outside of what God knows, right? In that concept, we do take everything that God decides to be objectively true, objectively right, or objectively wrong, because there really
Right.
is no knowledge or any reality outside of what God has created.
Why does that get to be objective? If God
Because
is deciding what's right and wrong, even if he has all the knowledge in the world about everything, it still doesn't make it objective.
it
It
is
still
objective,
It doesn't
because there,
overcome the.
it is objective because there is no knowledge outside of what God knows.
But
and
we're
what
not
God,
talking about knowledge. Knowledge isn't what matters
Yeah.
here.
because
Truth is
morality
what
does
matters. That's
depend.
hold on, I haven't finished.
Faisal, just one
Truth
sec.
is
Let's
what
let
matters
Leah
here,
finish.
not knowledge. God can know that things are true, but their truth itself is given independently of what God thinks. That's the point here. So God can know these moral facts, but their truth still holds independently of him.
Not if all truth, everything that you know of, all reality is created by God. God is not part
I
of
don't.
reality. He's
What does
outside
that
of
even
reality.
mean? Truth is a property of sentences. We can create sentences independently of God, and we can have truth independently of God. I'm sorry, I just don't understand
No.
what it means that
I don't
God
think you
created
understand
truth.
the concept. I don't think you understand the concept of God that we have, right? So in our concept of God, we take God to be the ultimate truth. Anything
That's
that
just
What does
begging
that
the
mean?
question. That's just begging the question. You're basically
fine.
just
If it is
just
begging the
hang on
question,
a sec. Well, let me finish. Let me finish. That's just presupposing that God
you cut me off,
is
Mark. So let me actually
okay.
finish up. Then you can come back. So for us, when we say that God is the truth, we do say that. That's one of his names, that he is the truth, right? And that anything that comes from him is true, right? For us, it is a matter of just accepting that then, all right? And I get
But
it
when you
that you may
say
not agree with it. You may not
Well,
agree with
go
it.
on.
You might say that, yes, that's just begging the question, or you're not presenting an argument. But when you look at reality, that is how reality actually operates. Any other option, any other other opposing view that you want to give, you have to prove how that is actually a better explanation, the explanation that we're giving.
when you
No,
say
that's
that God
shifting the
is
burden of
truth,
proof. Just one second, Lee. I really wanted to address this. For a start, sort of saying, for us, God is truth, is you're shifting from what is ontologically true to your epistemology. Like, and things are either going to be true as in virtue of like reality, they're going to be either true of reality or not true of reality. It's not going to be true for you and not true for me. Right. So you're sort of doing this weird thing where you're trying to say, well, it's my perspective that it's true when we're talking about what is actually true and what is not actually true. So it's very weird. You're presupposing, you're doing an unjustified presupposition that the God that you are referring to is truth. And I reject that presupposition. Why would I accept that presupposition? But that's so far away from morality and your claim that morality comes from a God, because you're claiming that it is true that it comes from a God, like that it is moral facts that come from a God, while saying, well, it seems to be God's moral opinion, but because he has all this knowledge, it is moral fact. And that doesn't overcome that it is stance dependent, that it is just his will that is providing the moral framework for your worldview.
Yeah, his will provides moral framework for everything. He's the
Then
independent.
it's subjective.
He's the
Well-
independent being, and everything else depends on him.
let me ask an
the moral
important question
framework
here.
depends on him as well.
You said
Right.
God, that in your worldview, God is truth. When you say that, what do you mean by truth there? When you say that God is truth?
God is the ultimate truth in our worldview, right? That
Yeah, but what do you
anything-
mean by that? What do you mean by ultimate truth?
What we mean by ultimate truth is that he exists without needing anything else to exist, right? For him, well, anything else.
Wait, so you mean
for
he's
him to exist.
necessary?
Good
That is
night, everyone.
necessary.
Yeah.
But that's not what truth means. So
good
then
night,
what
Hussein.
you mean is that
Nice
God
talking to
is
you, Mark.
necessary.
Bye.
Yeah, good to see you, Hussein. See you later. Sorry to interrupt, Leo. Go for
Hussein,
it.
Very good.
Hussein,
Sorry,
wait,
guys.
Hussein,
So what-
Hussein, wait, please. Hussein, wait. Salam
What?
alaikum. If you don't mind, I
Walaikum
would like
salam,
to
walaikum salam.
Who's over talking? Could we
Sorry. Bye.
let Leo go? See you, Hussein.
No,
Have a good night, mate.
I would like
Thank you.
to say something to Hussein before he step. Allah Mustaan.
Okay.
So it sounds like what you mean to say is God is necessary, because what you just defined does not sound like anything even remotely close to any definition of truth. Do you have a
so if it-
particular theory of truth that
If,
you hold
if
to?
something is necessary by necessity, it holds true, right?
Well, I don't know what that means, because truth is a property of sentences, and something's being necessary is going to be a metaphysical feature, or more specifically, an ontological feature of it if we're talking about necessary existence. That has nothing to do with the concept of truth.
For you, maybe not.
Well,
That's fine.
for modern philosophers and linguists as well, because all of them take truth to be a feature of languages and sentences.
Right. So we
Truth
can
isn't a
talk
thing
about
in the world.
Yeah, we can talk about abstract concepts, right? And I can say it is true that Superman wears a cape, right? That is a true statement. But it refers to a certain set of parameters that the fictional character of Superman wears a cape. None of it is real, but it is true, right? So
No,
what
I
Leo's
understand.
trying to
I
say
understand
is that when
moral
you
truth.
say God is truth, you don't seem to be applying it as God exists in reality, rather that God provides some kind of validation that everything exists, and that's not what truth means.
Any truth that exists, that you feel that exists independent of whether or not the statement that I'm making is true or not, relies on the ultimate truth that something must exist to give it validation. And that's
What's an
what it is.
ultimate truth? What's an
The ultimate
ultimate
truth is what you can actually get that makes sense of that truth. Like without
Well,
that,
I mean, I think by ultimate truth, I would sort of say reality, like what actually makes things exist and not
The
exist.
truth
And
maker,
we can
I think,
refer
is what
to
he's
reality.
referring to.
you're basically talking
Like the
about
thing that makes a
it's not
sentence
just about
true.
the truth maker. It's not just about the truth maker, right? What makes these truth makers true? Like if you were
No,
to
no, you're not understanding. Truth
okay, maybe I'm
makers
not understanding
are the
truth maker.
things that make things true. That's why we call them the truth makers. So if I said, this is just a hypothetical, if I said it's raining outside and somebody looked out the window and saw that it was raining outside, that sentence would be true. What makes it true is the actual fact that it is raining outside. So that's the
Reality.
difference between, say, the truth bearer, which is the sentence, and the truth maker, which is the physical state of affairs the sentence is properly corresponding to. And there's a little bit of like correspondence theory of truth in there. But yeah, so it seems to me that when you talk about this ultimate truth, you're just talking about the truth maker. But it's quite clear that, given the hypothetical I just gave, that we don't need to appeal to anything supernatural to make many types of sentences true.
Do you think reality exists?
Of course.
Okay, where does the reality come from? What is the cause of this reality?
I don't think reality
What is the
comes
cause?
from anywhere, because I think that's the wrong language to describe reality. I think
Okay.
reality literally just is.
Yes.
It just is.
Mhm.
Yes, literally, it just is. And I understand that that's hard for a lot of people to wrap their minds around, but the concept of explanations isn't a feature of the physical world. It's things humans seek about other things. They're intentional features.
So if
for the most
reality
part.
just is, and let's say the only part of reality, let's say that we can actually see, hear, or basically make informed decisions about, right, is what we see in this universe. Okay, there are certain things which are outside of this universe, which I don't necessarily consider would be materialistically defined.
We don't know.
This universe,
How
right?
how would we
don't
even
know. How do we
know?
know? Like, so you're
Like
basically saying
your
there's things.
consciousness.
Hang on.
Your
I
consciousness.
knew that's the word he was going to say.
Hang on.
Your
So
consciousness is not part
no,
of the universe.
Sale, come
Right.
on. This isn't.
Yeah,
Come on, man. Seriously, come on. The idea that you're sort of saying there's things outside of this sort of universe, you have to demonstrate that is actually the case. We're saying we don't know. There may be a greater something out there. There might be a cosmos with other baby universes in it. We don't know. But you're claiming to assert this and therefore it's true. You've actually got to demonstrate that. So if you can demonstrate something outside this universe, have at it. But just claiming it and asserting it is just a hollow assertion. It's
So
empty. It's baseless.
Mark, it's
Yeah.
a very simple question for me, right?
Okay.
What is more probable, that something gave cause to this universe, or this universe didn't exist without a cause?
False dichotomy.
How?
That's a false dichotomy because
How?
all I have to do is give one other option and it's a false dichotomy.
Give me another
So-
option, and we
Yeah,
can
sure.
discuss that one as well.
The universe is originally was in an atemporal state and has
What is an
existed
atemporal
for all
state?
time.
What do you mean by an
not
The
outside of
bouncy
time.
universe.
No, I just want him to make sure that he
Yeah. So what you've
explains
presented
right?
is a false dichotomy. You're basically saying, was the universe this or that? And those are not the only two options. Could be cyclical. It could turn in on itself. I don't think that's true.
I mean,
but that could
we
be a
could grant
possibility.
him.
Okay,
We could
so
grant him the
my
two choices and just give
again,
equal
it's
probability
not
to
a
them.
it's
I,
not a
I
false
think that there's
dichotomy.
equal probability that the universe
It is
was
a false
uncaused
dichotomy. I
versus
presented
I'm
another option.
I'm asking if
I
there's a
presented a
cause
third
or if
one,
there's no
a fourth
cause.
one.
If
I
there's a
presented a
cause or
fourth
there's no
one.
cause, this is like
I think it's.
it is
I think it's.
inexhaustive.
I think it's more probable that the universe existed atemporally, right?
Okay.
That Sean Carroll, when he's talking about it, he sort of says, "Yeah, what does before time even mean? And if time wasn't present, how could the universe begin to exist? Like, what kind of situation could you have?" But I don't know. And I wouldn't go so far as to claim probabilities, because here's your problem. You've got a sample size of 1. Do you know why you don't flip a coin and then say, well, every coin flipped will be heads? Then it's because your sample size is absolutely pathetic. You need at least 300 samples to make any kind of coherent statistical statement. And you've got a sample size of 1.
You're going down a tangent, right?
That's
question,
not a tangent.
Look, listen to what I'm asking you. It is pretty much exhaustive. It's A and not A. Anything that you talk about when you talk about A and not A, it becomes exhaustive.
You're
Was there a
assuming
cause
that
or
But
was
you
there
didn't
no
say
cause?
A, not A. You didn't say caused or not caused,
That's what I said.
right?
I mean,
That's-
he did
that's
say
what I
that
asked.
the universe caused or uncaused.
That's what I asked.
Okay,
I think
well,
you misunderstood
uncaused
my
then
question.
is the more probable one. Uncaused then
You're
is the
saying
more
it is
probable one.
uncaused, right? So that for
Sure.
me is where I lose you guys, right? Because you're basically telling me that this universe had no cause, okay? And there's definitely no proof of that, if whatsoever. You're asking me for proof. There's definitely no
of a
proof.
cause. Okay, just say it's caused. There's no proof that cause is a god. How do you eliminate naturalistic processes?
I'm not jumping to that conclusion. I'm not jumping to that
Okay, well,
conclusion
let's,
at
for
all.
the sake of argument, let's say that it's more probable that it was caused. Now,
Yeah.
how do you get to a god?
So, okay, so here's the question. If it was caused, do you think that that cause is has agency or no agency?
Yeah, this is just
Again,
No
this is
agency.
well.
You're
See,
saying
hold
no
on here.
agency?
Let me interject here for a second, because
This
the point that
feels
he's
like a
getting at.
script. Basil, just
Well,
one second.
it is.
Leah.
It's
No script. I'm just asking you.
No,
It's a
this
Kalam.
absolutely feels like a script. Like, seriously.
Well, I can tell you what the argument that he's giving is. So it's the idea that if something is a excuse me, a temporal effect, but with an atemporal cause, this wouldn't work on just a mere mechanical cause alone. Because if the cause for, say, X has existed literally forever, and it is truly sufficient for the production of X, then its effect, X, has also existed forever. So if the universe had a cause, but that cause was mechanical, and this cause has existed forever, then the universe would have also existed forever. So the cause, since it exists forever, but its effect doesn't, needs to have the ability to refrain from producing its effect. And the only thing that we can think of that does that would be an agent. Now, there's reasons why this argumentation fails, and that's largely because I don't see why the universe would need a cause. The whole concept of causation is probably something contained within the universe rather than being transcendent to it. And I've never had anybody give me a meaningful metaphysics of causation absent spatio-temporal relations.
Leo, if the cause is eternal and the
Mhm.
reasons why everything has to exist is eternal, what should be the effect?
I just explained the argument you're trying to give.
Should it be temporal or non? Should it be temporal or eternal?
It would be eternal because
It would be
sufficient.
eternal, right?
Yeah, it's
The
sufficient
universe
cause
is not
is eternal.
The
I know
universe
that.
is not eternal.
Well,
the universe
it's not
is not
temporally
eternal.
eternal, but it is tenseless.
No. The universe is not eternal. We can
We don't
see
How
know
do
that
you
in the
know?
world.
Hang on.
Okay, wait.
I think eternal. No. Wait, this is my room, Faisal. You don't get to say wait to me. Stop.
You
You're trying to
haven't
run
heard
the
me
room.
out.
All
Then
right,
you
you're
can-
out of here.
That's fine.
Are you gonna listen to me, or are you just gonna carry on?
If you hear me out, what I've just got to say, then I'm very happy to hear you out on why you think you want to refute, because I heard you out completely.
I've been
And I wanna
listening
make
to you.
sure.
I haven't talked in quite some time. You and Leo have been going at it. I wanted to add something. Please be respectful and
That's fine.
allow me
Okay.
to add something in my own room. How about that?
Okay, that's
And
fine.
then I will show you the respect that you deserve. Okay, but you're sort of going, I'm this is my room, and you're going, no, you hold on. No. Forget it. No, you're not going to disrespect me like that. No.
All
way.
right, man. Goodbye.
Okay, so when you're saying
Oh.
yeah, okay, dummy spit. When you're saying sort of eternal, I think eternal's the wrong word. I think atemporal is a lot better, because when you're talking about eternal, you're talking about infinite time, and I don't think there is infinite time. I think it is atemporal. It's no time at all. So I think eternal is misleading, to be honest with you.
I think another thing, just to add to that, because I agree with that completely. I use the word tenseless, but the word atemporal would work just fine. I mean, effectively, the same thing.
Tenseless. Yeah.
And the other thing is I would say time is the feature of the universe, which means that the universe itself, in its totality, doesn't endure for any amount of time. And it doesn't itself exist in any space, at least as far as we know. Space-time is a feature of the universe. And this is why it makes no sense to talk about outside of the universe or beyond the universe. It's as much sense as talking about north of the North Pole. The universe itself does not exist in any location. Locations are something that are a feature of the universe. And the universe itself does not endure for any time. Time is a feature of the universe. Too many people take these internal concepts and try to apply them to the universe itself. And I just don't think that we're warranted in doing that.
See that subscribe button? Hit it hard.